Boom. That is how you ride a motherfucking bike. Let's go. In this video, right, I'm teaching you how to ride a bike, but I'm really going through what I look at in Zwift. I got some notes here. What I look at in Zwift, body position keys, mistakes that I see beginners make. Talk about rhythm, how to acquire rhythm, how to distribute muscle load. Talk a lot about cadence, apply the cadence stuff to the drills that we do. Talk about ankle flexion, things that I think about. So that's pretty much where we're headed. By the end of this video, you will be a stud on the bike. Let's go. I am mid-ride here, and I just felt like building out a resource that tells you guys everything that I'm thinking about when I'm on here, how I'm riding this thing. And I also just want to call out some beginner mistakes that I see. Also going to touch on some drills that we do, some rides that we do, why we do them, how they help us develop. And that's the intention, but we will see where this thing goes. Right now, this past weekend, Friday, Saturday, we did the Tribal 24. We had a bunch of athletes, like 15 athletes in Tribal, run 4 miles every 4 hours for 24 hours. A little mindset prep ahead of a 50-mile ultra that we're doing. So my ride right here is really just focused on a little bit of recovery for that, but it's also just like base off-season endurance for me here. We've also got a new challenge in the team, and I'm kind of taking part in that as well. So we got Chattanooga 70.3 in May, and we got like over 20 athletes doing that race. If you're interested in signing up with us, there's still time. And we've got a lot of new first-timers training for that race. And so I have challenged everybody doing Chattanooga 70.3 to get 4 2-hour rides in during the month of January. And so I'm taking part in that here, even though I'm not racing. And that is pretty much what's going on. So I'm a little bit of bridging recovery, a little bit just building endurance, a little bit just building my off-season base. So let me start with my setup here. So I got Zwift up on the screen. I got the Wahoo Kicker Core bike trainer. And the real value of the Zwift setup is that I got all my data right here. So I got my heart rate, right now it's 99. I got my watts, I'm riding at 103 watts right here, 106, 112. I got my RPM, my cadence. And right here I'm at 85, sitting at 85. Cool. So when we're thinking about developing, we can use all of those metrics to just like kind of pay attention to how different things are working during the ride. Now, the first thing I want to get into is body position. So let me just get right into what I look to lock in on. So to me, right here is my ideal body position. My body kind of naturally fell to like 91, 92 cadence here. And the things that I'm thinking about are, number one, I'm very aggressive. I'm on top of the bike. Right, you can see very vertical angle, shoulders are pretty much above the elbows, and my ass is up on the front of this seat. Right, here I am sitting on the back of the seat, right, if I just want to ride, right, but here, as I'm like locked in TT position in a race, I'm fucking up on top of this thing, right? So again, very different. I'm just riding back here, pretty casual, and then up here, right? A mistake that I see from beginners is that they're always just back on the seat. I'll let my cadence down a little bit. They're always back on the seat, and they're always just kind of riding a little low and slow with their cadence. I especially see this at guys who are coming into endurance from a strength background. They're used to like squatting heavy weight. If they've ever ridden a bike, it's been like a beach cruiser, flat pedals, right? So they just kind of sit here and they just kind of ride like this. Now, this is bringing me to the first point on cadence and why we do different cadence drills, right? So right here, I'm at 69 cadence, 68 cadence, 67, right? And this is pretty low, right? And the problem with always riding low is that we can have gaps in our pedal stroke that are pretty much disguised by the fact that our legs aren't moving over very quickly. So, one of the ways that I help guys develop is that we want to stress that cadence to rise higher. Right here I'm at 62, 63. Right, so very often we will include sets where we're getting up to 90 plus, right? So right here, I'm at 90, 91, 92. Now the purpose of that is like getting more efficient on the bike. When you raise your cadence, your rapid turnover is going to raise your heart rate. So there are optimal cadences for everybody, and there are ways that we can figure out what that is for you. But one of the mistakes that I see is guys are just always riding low and slow like this. They're kind of back on the saddle, right? They're sort of not really thinking about how they're like aggressively moving the bike forward, and they're just kind of waiting for this thing to happen, right? My intention is totally different. We are fucking up on this thing, and we are moving at a more rapid cadence. Okay, now, as you're starting to understand your body position better, starting to play with cadence, the number one thing that we always want to have on the bike is rhythm. So we want to find a rhythm where we're basically connected to the bike. We've got tension being applied to the chain the whole time. I'll talk on that in a second. And our breathing rate, our power output, it becomes a very sustainable thing. So rhythm. What am I thinking about with rhythm right now? Number one is the balance between my cadence and my power output. Right here I'm riding at 181 watts. Just bumped to 209, 218, and I'm at 88. I'm going uphill here now, so my cadence is dropping a little bit. I'm at 88, 87. Right now, that's a very different rhythm than if I'm like this. This is 55 cadence. And I'm at a pretty similar power, 205, 209. Same kind of power, heart rate's the same, I haven't been reading that. I'm at 118 BPM right now. But as we think about doing this for 3 hours, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours for a 70.3 to an Ironman, we want to just come back to what makes this feel good. What connects us to the bike, and what allows us to become one with the bike and really blend all these elements going on. All right, so that's kind of the one idea. Now, let me talk a little bit about actual like power output and muscle recruitment. So, one of the problems with always being really low cadence is that there can be gaps in the pedal stroke that are totally masked by the fact that this is like really slow. Like we can get sloppy without realizing it. So, one of the drills that we do is single leg. And the idea, right, we take one leg out and we start pedaling with just one leg. Now the purpose of this is to hear these gaps in the pedal stroke. I don't hear any right now, but if I did, right, those kinds of clicks, that exposes like a very herky-jerky pedal stroke where every time we're like wasting energy. We're still throwing our legs around, but we're not actually moving the bike forward at that point in the pedal stroke. And a lot of guys will be doing this if they've only ever ridden on a bike with flat pedals, where they're only applying pressure on the front end of the stroke, right? And that's very quad dominant. So what we want to think about is having that connection to the chain the whole time, and that is engaging quad. Hamstrings are pulling up, but it's not like a yank. Like it's very smooth throughout it. And then we're also able to get the glute going a little bit more. So, when you see single leg drills in your plan, that's the main thing that we're working on. Now, the other drill that we do often, spin-ups. So, spin-ups are basically 30-second accelerations that push your highest comfortable cadence. So, I'll just do one right here. I'm riding at pretty low right here, 73, 74, 76. And now what I would do is drop this to little ring, and I would start to blast my cadence up. So right here I'm already at 107, 108, 110, 115. And so what I'm thinking about is being connected to the chain the whole time. I don't want to be bouncing out of my seat. And this is like neuromuscular training. This is like getting better at the movement of cycling. Now we drop it down. Right here I'm at 91, 92. You can even go a little lower. Look for like 85, 82 here. And we want to keep that same rhythm and that same motion, then we would do it again. Right, so finding a good spot for my ass on the seat. 113, 114, 115, 16. Let's see what we can do here. 126, 127, 132, let's go. 134, come on, what can I get? 137, oh, 141, 143. That might be a new PR for me. That is obviously, I'm breathing pretty heavy. That is obviously unsustainable for a race, right? But that's training the body on how to ride the bike. That's very different than what I described earlier of the guy that just rides a bike kind of like this. He's kind of swaying with his motion. He's kind of leaning per side as he pedals. Super different, right, than aggressive up on the seat. Okay, now what else can we think about? So, once we started to work on all those things, another thing that we can improve is our overall glute engagement and pelvic tilt. So, right, we've gone from a guy just riding like this to then using the aero bars. But one mistake that I see is guys have a very flat back like this. And when they're in this position, their glutes are pretty much totally shut off. So they got quad going, they got hammy going, but the glute really isn't able to engage. So one of the things that we can do is almost tuck our pelvis and round our back. Right, so you should be able to see that my back is rounded here. And now all of a sudden, that rhythm is a little bit better. Back to the rhythm. Right, it's harder for me to find rhythm here. I feel like almost like a disconnect in my upper body. Still better than just like riding back like this. But this is harder to find a rhythm at than this. Really up on the nose of the seat. Almost pressing back against the seat, not so much sitting on it. Almost pressing back. And right here, right, I'm back at this 205 watts. My heart rate's still a little high from that overly aggressive spin. I'm at 126. Cadence is 91. Right, so these are the things that are going on. Now, another thing on cadence. So, some guys, like Lionel Sanders, one of the best Ironman athletes in the world, he's what's called a grinder. And that means that he rides at a low cadence. So he rides like low 70s, mid 70s. Right here, I'm at 63, I want to get this up. I'm on an incline on this ride. All right, so right here, I'm at 76, 75, 74. Okay, now, the best Ironman athlete of the last decade, Jan Frodeno, he rode at 92. So he rode, let me get up there. He rode like this. 96, 93, right, so he's right around here. So there's not a right or a wrong, but depending on your background and the way that your body's built, you may skew one direction or the other. Now, a lot of the guys that I work with are coming from a strength background. They're big dudes. They got big ass quads. It's probably not going to be efficient for them to be throwing their freaking legs around at 100 cadence. That's a lot of weight, that's a lot of output to just move the body around. So they may be better at more of a, 75 or 80. Right here's 81. But we still want to train their body neuromuscularly with the high cadence work in training. Another point on this. I see this every time that guys come out to training camp. We get warming up, and the first thing that they see on my bike, they're like, dude, you're riding in Little Ring. I like never ride in Little Ring. I'm like, oh yeah, I love Little Ring. I love Little Ring. I warm up in Little Ring. I use Little Ring when I'm climbing. I'm in Big Ring most of the time in a race, but in training, when I'm on rolling terrain, when I'm climbing, like, I'll happily use Little Ring. I'm in Little Ring right now, and my power numbers and my overall just like effort here is similar to at any point in the ride. I can manipulate that. Right, I'm at 197 power, 78 cadence. I'm still on this hill in Zwift. I'm only really just starting this hill, holy cow. I'm at 130 BPM. And so I would encourage you, don't just be stuck in Big Ring, right? And the other idea of using Little Ring is that when we're riding, I'm on a big ass climb right here, so this isn't really a good example of this. But when we're riding on like rollers and changing terrain, we want to be able to always be like shifting up and down like very quickly. Let me see if I can manipulate some of this here. He's making some noise here. Okay, I'm going back down here. So one of the things we always want to do is we want to be like triggering these so that we can stay at our rhythm. So now I'm going downhill, and we don't just want to let the terrain dictate whether we're at a high cadence or a low cadence. Sometimes huge climb, you're going to be low, but like right here, I'm at 92 flying downhill, negative 7% grade. If I want to lock down to here, now I'm at 64, 65. Watts are the same, 233, 129 heart rate, but now I just downshifted and I'm at 108 cadence, right? And so the idea is that we want to be in control of that. We don't just want to let the terrain dictate how we're riding and it's like, oh fuck, big climb, just gotta kind of grind away. Like, if we're talking like rollers, like you can ride that flat with effective gear shifting. All right, let me round this out. Key is Zwift for indoor riding. I got a power meter that tells me all this stuff out on the road, but the indoor training is great for the beginners who don't have that yet. Body position, we want to evolve from just like the guy that rides here to then, I would say that like this is phase 2. You're in aero, but you're still like too far back on the seat. Your back is probably flat. Phase 3 is you want to get up on the seat, more aggressive, on top of the pedals. This is also changing like the angle of my output, right? Sitting back here, my leg is driving very differently than up here. This would be phase 3, and then phase 4 is like, you're fucking boom, boom. Rounded back, glutes engaged, rhythm. One other thing I didn't mention is ankle flexion. I don't focus on this a ton, but we want to basically have a fluid ankle through the pedal stroke, which means we want to get out of the pedal stroke just being boom, boom. Like I see guys ride like this, it's like all quad, no ankle flexion, no rhythm. Right, so the more that we can distribute the muscle load, the more we can stay connected to the chain the whole time, the more we can get some flex in the ankle. Well, now that rhythm comes along. And now that power output feels way better. Feels easier. You're more connected to the bike. Right, we're on top of the bars here. We're constantly shifting. Boom. I'm on flats here. I kind of like a higher cadence. My first couple of races that I did, I was like mid 70s. I then like went crazy. I did a race at like 97 cadence with great power output. And now I'm playing a little bit more with like mid 80s, low 90s. Now, another thing you can check on is that when you are doing big intervals, you can check on where your cadence goes. Because the body pretty much automatically drifts or gravitates to what is optimal. But that's only true when like you're working these systems, when you do the low cadence work and the high cadence work. And so for me, I did an FTP bike test about a month or two ago, and I saw that my average cadence was 85. And so I'm like, okay, riding at 97 cadence in a race, while it might feel good, it's putting my heart rate a little higher, right? Higher cadence, more rapid turnover, body is just a little bit more sporadic. And I can't hold 97 cadence for my best effort for that 30-minute power test set. Right? So that's kind of how I'm using this data to evolve and working in real time. So with that, I guess the last thing I'll say is like just a kind of a recovery ride. Right? I got about 10 minutes left here, and I'm going to spin pretty easy. So like, you know, not every moment of the ride I'm like this. Not every moment. But I'm also intentional that like, if I am seated upright, I'm not letting my legs get sloppy. I'm not bowing in and out. I'm not rocking side to side on the bike. Like we want this to be like 50% power on left and right. Even output. We want the bike to go straight. Any rocking side to side, huge red flag. Right? And so again, like the sets that we do, we're locked in here. I can also just like ride easy and sort of relax into this. Doesn't have to be like fucking super aggressive at all times. But it's also not just mindless. Like I'm not just like sitting on the bike. Like I see guys send me a video and they're kind of like doing this the whole time. And they don't realize it, but they're looking to gather rhythm. They're looking to gather momentum. That's why they're moving. But their momentum and their rhythm is side to side. And we got to get on top of the pedals, build this rhythm with quad, hammy, glute, of course calves, ankle flexion, constantly triggering, head down, rounded back, boom. That is how you ride a motherfucking bike. Let's go.